time before the iron fist of Babylon clinched the land of Judah in its merciless grip, God was again calling to his people. It was 627 BC, and the air hung heavy with unrest, as the soil of a once prosperous kingdom now withered under the relentless strain of political instability and pervasive moral decay. It was into this tumultuous scene that the ancient voice of prophecy echoed forth, carried on the lips of Hebrew seers like Jeremiah. A solitary figure in Jerusalem, Jeremiah was a storm in the desert. He prophesied a doom as inevitable as the setting sun, should the people of Judah not renounce their sins and return to the path of righteousness. Unlike the kings and courtiers of Jerusalem at the time, Jeremiah bore a countenance not of defiance, but of despair. And while his contemporaries like Ezekiel shared his prophecies among the exiles, Jeremiah chose to remain in the heart of Jerusalem, delivering his urgent message to its beleaguered people. Oh, that my head were waters, and my eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. Meanwhile, a colossal figure cast his shadow over this turbulent landscape. King Nebuchadnezzar II, the formidable leader of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, was busy etching his name into the annals of history. His rule, synonymous with the empire's golden age, witnessed an unprecedented expansion. The erecting of wondrous monuments, such as the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, were a testament to his ambition and might. The decision to besiege Jerusalem was a masterstroke of Nebuchadnezzar's grand strategy. Driven by a lust for power and regional dominance, he sought to stamp out any sparks of rebellion that dared to challenge the yoke of Babylon. When Judah, then a humble vassal state, refused to pay tribute, it ignited a flame that would soon consume its very existence. King Jehoiakim of Judah, in an audacious act of defiance, rebelled against Babylon. His motivation? Perhaps a desperate bid for independence, or an overestimation of his own kingdom's strength, or maybe a product of the relentless political pressure from pro-Egypt factions within his court. Nevertheless, his rebellion was a direct challenge to the towering sovereignty of Babylon, a dare that Nebuchadnezzar was all too willing to meet. Jehoiakim's audacity provoked the mighty Babylonian Beast. Nebuchadnezzar, refusing to allow such insubordination to go unanswered, was stirred to action. The ensuing siege of Jerusalem, the subsequent exile of King Jehoiakim, along with the upper crust of Judite society, and the installation of Zedekiah as a puppet king, were all part of Nebuchadnezzar's calculated response. This was his grand strategy, designed to reassert control, consolidate Babylonian dominance, and send a chilling message to any potential rebels. There will be no defiance against the throne of Babylon. In the second wave of deportations, Ezekiel, along with his wife, the desire of his eyes, who was bound to become herself a poignant symbol of prophetic urgency, found himself uprooted from his homeland and deposited along the banks of the Kabar Canal, a bustling waterway tethered to the life-giving arteries of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The Fertile Crescent, aptly named for its agricultural abundance, buzzed with the hum of date palm and willows, a stark contrast to the heartache carried by the exiles. Babylon's strategy was insidious as it was ingenious. Its prosperity and grandeur could captivate even those in chains. And while the new arrivals grappled with their captive status, they couldn't help but be awed by their captor's city's splendor. In the heart of Babylon, young Daniel, a promising youth taken during the first deportation, was making his presence felt. Even as he dwelt in the heart of the beast, his spirit remained steadfast, his righteousness already becoming a beacon, known even to Ezekiel 100 miles away in Kabar. Amid this drama of geopolitical intrigue and cultural tension, Ezekiel carried a burdensome yoke. He bore witness to the rampant idolatry and unbridled immorality of his people. The Sabbaths broken, the temple defiled, and the propagation of false prophecy. These acts of defiance against God left a bitter taste, yet they were a potent catalyst, setting the stage for a divine encounter. For by the river Kabar, in the 5th year of Jehoiakim's captivity, under the wide-open skies, Ezekiel's world was about to change. His heart ached, his spirit yearned, and his eyes were about to witness unfathomable glory. The heavens themselves opening up to him, revealing the God of creation enthroned in unapproachable light. Little did he know, this marked the beginning of an intense revelatory journey, one that would make him a beacon of hope for God's people in their darkest hour. It was his 30th year, a year that would have marked the beginning of his priestly service in the temple, had it not been for the captivity. Ezekiel stood on the sun-blistered banks of the river Kabar, looking north towards the heart of his shattered homeland. What appeared unto him was unusual and unexpected. The heavens opened, and he beheld a vision of God. A vision not of wrath or vengeful fury, but a revelation of divine order, heavenly majesty, and, in contrast to the idols of Babylon, a God that is overwhelmingly holy. Intimating at divine visitations like those in the lives of Job, Abraham, and Elijah, a whirlwind appeared unto Ezekiel. Surely as a priest, he was familiar with these stories. But what was once only a passage written on parchment, now was manifest, alive, before him. It was an enigmatic spectacle of fire enfolding on itself. Within this divine flame were 4 living creatures. Each bore 4 faces: a lion, representative of divine authority and kingship; an ox, representative of servanthood and self-sacrifice; a man, representative of human intellect, ingenuity, and wisdom; and an eagle, representative of prophetic vision, insight, and spirituality. These each had 4 wings, 2 uplifted and fused to another's, representative of fraternity and divine cooperation, while the other 2 were folded, covering their bodies, an act of humility, as only the head should be seen. Their legs were straight and had feet like calves, and their bodies radiated as coals aglow with ethereal fire. When they moved, it sounded like a torrent, raging mightily in its course. These were the cherubim, the throne bearers of God, the guardians of His holiness. Within the foursquare of these beings appeared another type of angel, as lightning running forth. These were the Seraphim. These were fiery serpents, burning ones with power over fire. Their radiant bodies served as a powerful reminder of God's absolute holiness and His all-consuming nature. There must have been a tinge in Ezekiel's heart as he experienced what Isaiah felt when he said, "Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, of the Lord of hosts. Positioned directly outside the living creatures, one on each side, raised high 4 monumental wheels. These were the Ophanim, wheels within wheels. These were filled with eyes round about and were possessed by the spirit of the living creature. Whenever a creature moved, the wheel would invariably follow. Over these celestial beings stretched an expanse of firmament like a sea of glass, reminding Ezekiel of God's covenant promise. It was the same sapphire pavement the elders of Israel witnessed under the feet of God when they met with him on Mount Sinai. It was the same blue stone affixed to the breastplate of the high priest that was carried over his heart. And on the expanse of firmament above the cherubim rested a single, solitary throne. There one sat with the appearance like that of a man. Stricken by the sheer weight of divine glory, Ezekiel fell as if dead. But the figure on the throne reached out, his voice vibrating across the waters of the river Kabar like distant thunder, calling to his prophet. The same voice that had whispered into the heart of the cosmos, calling it into being, now spoke to Ezekiel, marking the beginning of his prophetic ministry. In the very midst of his exile, surrounded by people whose hearts have been hardened by sin and far removed from God, Ezekiel stood distinct and untarnished. He was not swayed by the sinfulness that engulfed his society. His integrity, and perhaps even his bloodline as a descendant of Zadok, made him an apt vessel for this divine encounter. An encounter that left him with a vision of God, his sovereignty, and his absolute holiness. Amidst the heavenly orchestra of angelic creatures and the harmonious clamor of the Divine Chariot, there came a silence. It fell with the palpability of a shroud, and amidst that silence, a solitary hand emerged, reaching out from the celestial flame. In its grip, it held a scroll, densely inscribed on both sides with words of lamentation, mourning, and woe. These were not mere words etched in ink, but a revelation issued forth from the heart of God. Ezekiel watched as the scroll unrolled. The script, though steeped in prophecy, was not merely to be recited. It was an invitation, a call to participate in a divine narrative, a task that went beyond just communicating God's word, but embodying it in flesh. To Ezekiel, God had condescended himself with a mission, crafted in the heavenly realms to serve an earthly purpose, to turn the people of God back to their Creator. The voice spoke, "Son of man, eat what is before you. Eat this scroll, then go and speak to the people of Israel." With trembling hands, Ezekiel reached for the scroll. It was heavy with divine gravitas and was tangible in his grasp. The act that followed was symbolic, yet deeply intimate. Ezekiel ate the scroll. It was as sweet as honey in his mouth, a stark contrast to the bitter realities it contained. In this act, the prophetic call inscribed externally on the scroll was internalized, assimilated into the very fabric of his being. Ezekiel had become himself God's Word. No longer just a conduit for divine messages, he became the very embodiment of it, living it out in the midst of his people. Thus fortified with the word that lived within him, Ezekiel embarked on his divine assignment, a journey that would demand much of him, one fraught with challenges and met with hardened hearts. Yet it was a journey he willingly undertook, committed to turning the hearts of his people back to their God. Ezekiel's calling, his consumption of the scroll, his embodiment of God's word, his walk in the midst of a sinful generation, echoed through the ages, serving as a profound foreshadowing of another beloved exile, John the Apostle on the lonely island of Patmos. It was there that John would also receive an open scroll, eat it, and be moved to prophesy about the times to come.